learn how to, I mean, when we were doing school, we call these similes and metaphors, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is that like? What is it an example of?
Mm-hmm.
So find another way to express it. If you find yourself talking about something and that person on the receiving end is like, I still don't get it, I still don't get it, you can find another way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to Diversity Dish, where we're dishing on everything diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice related. My name is Sedruola Maruska, and we're bridging the gap between what needs to be said and what needs to be heard. Those individual experiences that are often ignored or simply dismissed. Sometimes I'm dining alone, sometimes I'm dining with friends, and sometimes I'm dining a la carte. No matter how I'm dining, it promises to be delicious. Let's dig in. Monique Russell is the global communications expert you want on your team. She teaches women leaders and teams how to have positive and productive relationships at home and work using effective communications tools and strategies. Passionate about serving Black and women employee resource groups, organizations like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, the Centers for Disease Control, Verizon, Intel, Equifax, and the world's busiest airport, Atlanta Hartsfield Jackson International, trust Monique to guide them in implementing communication strategies that foster connection, community, creativity, and courage. You can too. Monique has 20 years of experience in the science of communications and leads Clear Communication Solutions, an international training, coaching, and consulting firm that focuses on confidently communicating from the inside out. She is the author of The Ultimate Speaker's Guide and the book International Motherhood, Who Said It Would Be Easy, and host of the Bridge to You podcast. Welcome back to Diversity Dish. I'm so happy you came back because my guest today is Monique Russell. How are you, Monique?
I am doing well, Sedruola. I'm so happy to be on the Diversity Dish today.
I'm really excited to have you. I want to ask you my first question before we get into all those things that we're going to talk about today, and that is, what are you passionate about right now, Monique?
Right now, I have the serious itch. Okay. And that itch is a travel itch. I love to travel, I love to experience new cultures, people, places, foods. I love to eat. And so, what I am most passionate about is exposing myself to new places, new cultures, new things, so that I could be more effective when I'm helping my clients break into new markets and have more effective conversations when they're talking with prospects, clients, partners, etc.
Love it. So I know that you are a communications expert. So let's pretend that we no one understands what the correlation is between traveling and communication. So please help us with that.
Ooh, I already see I'm gonna like this conversation because I'm gonna be like able to just talk about whatever comes up. So excellent question. Communication and travel. There's so many aspects of connection. So communication is all about making sure that your message is received as though it was intended. And sometimes it's difficult for people to be able to see different perspectives or,
Mm-hmm.
different cultures. Another aspect of how travel connects to communication is through our biases and through prejudices and
Mm-hmm.
through how we think of and see people who are different from us as either superior or inferior to
Mm-hmm.
us. But
Mm-hmm.
when we go on those excursions and we go on those adventures, we're able to now either confront and validate our perceptions or have those challenged and really force ourselves to step outside of our comfort zone. Now, the beautiful thing about that is when you do that, you're not only enhancing your ability to be more effective when you connect with other people, But if you are a business owner, you are increasing the chance of having sustainability in any type of service or product that you're offering. Because, I mean, we know it's all about customer service, it's all about communication. And we see the breakdown happen so frequently and so often, even with the most highly qualified, highly respected, highly educated, highly accoladed. I made up that word, accolade, right? We
Yes.
see it, but the aspect of communication is one area of skill development that a lot of people struggle with, and travel helps us to speed that process up.
Yes, absolutely. I just love the way that you just, broke that down so clearly. I say all the time, especially in the work that I do as a consultant for equity and inclusion, that travel is one of the things that could really help people to try to be better communicators, because you have to try to understand what people are saying, and you have to be able to get people to understand what you are saying, especially when you travel to a country where you don't speak the language, or you speak very little of the language and they don't speak your language. One of the things that is so frustrating, when I travel abroad sometimes, is that the perception, of course, is that, oh, Americans are rude and brash and they're not gonna try, which is the perception that we give, because sometimes we travel and we expect people to speak our language even in their home,
Mm-hmm.
at their home. And my thing is, no, you need to try to speak their language, because just because they're not speaking your language doesn't mean that they're stupid. So you need to understand, try to communicate and have this understanding of how do we do this.
Mm-hmm. Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I love that you correlated it there. I also love that you brought in business owners. One thing that I find that business owners sometimes lack is the ability to communicate outside of their comfort zone. And that can cripple them even at home, because the language that they use right now, I'm doing audits, and the language that they use is sometimes only meant for a small demographic. So then you go, so are you trying to attract more people? I'm like, yeah, we want to attract everybody. But like, yeah, but your language speaks only to a small percentage of the people that you say you want to attract. So how do you work with communication, like businesses, to help them with their communications, let's say?
So when you were talking, there were a couple of examples, and I'm smiling because I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah. So, I mean, I'm going to take some granular examples here, and just from the basic of networking, for example. And what you're talking about is the industry jargon or the company jargon that, they're so familiar with. Now, when you're trying to get into that space, you want to learn some of the jargon that they use so that you don't have to sound as if you are on the outside, because it increases rapport, it builds familiarity. But as you are networking with others, you want to be able to open up, that space outside of just your industry. So I love
Mhm.
networking. I network with people a lot. And there are many times that I'll connect with business owners and we'll have a conversation, and it's so narrowly focused about what's going on in their industry, what's happening with that industry, using all the jargon. And my eyes are just glazing over in the back of my head, like, oh my God, how much more time do I have here? And, so, like,
You
I
see
don't
the
that's
big clock.
I don't even want to take notes on this conversation, because no, this is
Right.
this is one I don't want to repeat.
Right.
So, so not being aware of how you are using the language to siphon off potential people who want to be partners or referral partners or prospective clients for you, is a way that I help business owners to become more aware of that, understanding the communication styles, learning how to have conversations outside of your primary domain, learning how to be more effective as a listener. You don't have to talk the whole time.
Okay.
Just learning how to put those things in practice first with themselves. For example, I'd say, hey, we're going to have this conversation is we're going to talk for about 5 minutes, and there gonna be some things you want to agree with or disagree with, but you cannot say one word. All right. Like, oh my God, it's like a kid who's in a candy store who's like, you want to burst out, but now you're teaching and you're training yourself. So I'd say that's one way for business owners, just very granular, starting with the networking, starting because that's really the initial rapport building phase. And if you can't get past that, well, I mean, we can't even talk about what happens when we're talking about a project delay or something
Right.
else down the road because we haven't gotten there. So I just start there first, before I move into any advanced strategies and things like that.
I can only imagine what it looks like when you're saying don't say anything and people are like,
Oh, it's tough. Oh, it's
"Oh, I know."
tough. It's tough. It's tough. But I encourage everyone who's listening anyway to just, make that a practice for yourself, and then see what you're learning about yourself in the need to respond or say something. Write it down, because you want to get that out. That energy is in there, and then because you want to say something, now it's creating noise up here, and you can't really listen to what's truly being said because you want to say something. And
Yeah.
so write it down so you can get that energy out and be more present and focus on what's being said.
Yeah. What do you find is the reason that people want to fill the void all the time?
You mean of when
Like
they're
when
talking?
like when people are talking, yes, or like we're having a conversation right now and we're using pauses, we're using quiet, we're moving through, we're listening to each other. But I find that sometimes people have a really hard time with that, and they're constantly using filler words or run on sentences, or what do you find to be the reason that people do that?
Well, a couple of things. One, we're moving so fast. And so it's an autopilot, auto response thing, not
Mm-hmm.
even really thinking through, slowing down. So, it's just like you get up, the alarm goes off, get out of bed, go to the restroom, use it, brush your teeth, whatever. It's almost like we're on autopilot. I see that happen a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of my training workshops, I'll have to say, look, we're going to have silence for this period of time, because someone will come off mute and they'll say, well, I'll just say something so we don't have dead silence. But like, no, no, no. I love silence. Like, we're going to sit in silence today. So, so, so I have to tell people to not come off mute because we're going to sit here for 3 minutes. And it's hard, it's hard. But I think people they're uncomfortable with silence. They interpret it as something like, oh, nobody's talking, so they're
There's
not
a
listening to
problem.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like maybe what I said was not something that was good. Oh boy. And then it creates all those loops inside that person's head. Even if you're not the presenter, the people
Mm-hmm.
who are in the virtual room or in the physical room, they're like, okay, silence. Okay, okay. If their discomfort goes off, and they're like, well, I'll give an example. So, like, hold up.
Yes.
It's all right.
Yes. It's so funny. I think what happens in that same vein, I think what it is that people are not used to, because we're moving so fast, people are not used to sitting with their own thoughts and sitting in silence by themselves. If they're sitting quietly, chances are they have headphones on,
Mhm.
or they're doing something else that is occupying their brain, and they're not used to sitting just with their thoughts.
Mhm.
So when you ask them to sit with their thoughts, the thoughts come faster because it's like, oh, now all of a sudden you're going to hear everything that you haven't been listening to. And it can become a little overwhelming. And it's like, I got to get it out. I got to get it out. Hi, my name is Sedruola Maruska, and I'm a leadership coach. I give business leaders the confidence and tools to have conversations about equity and inclusion to improve culture, increase productivity, and decrease attrition. All this I do through my Leader Builder coaching program. If you'd like to know more, please go to diversitydish.com.
Yeah, then you see all the distractions. So things that you see that are distractions is, okay, you see people getting up to go use the bathroom. That's a distraction. Like, you can control your body to sit down for an hour through a presentation and be present. You can't. But yes. You see those are distractions. Or, you got to start pulling something out of your bag, you got to be snacking. All of those are distractions. So if you can't talk, and I mention this and I point this out sometimes inside the training space, like, okay, like look who was able to sit and who was not able to sit, and how long were you able to sit before you start pulling out that cell phone, start scrolling, whatever have you. So it is difficult sometimes for people to sit with their thoughts. And, when we can create that space, I say everything is like that, the proverb, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. So you start small. If you can't do it for 3 minutes, do it for a minute. If you can't do it for a minute, do it for half a minute. You can't do it for half a minute, do it for 2 seconds. Just start small. Right. To build that practice, because sometimes we hear those thoughts. And I am someone that loves introspection. I love to sit in silence. I go on retreats. In fact, I'm overdue for a retreat right now because I know that I am overstimulated. I know that. I know that. And this is from someone who has practices in place to help me be present, be focused, or whatever have you. So there are things that I have to do. I have to just make those decisions to shut off all of those distractions and put like mechanisms on my calendar to say, hey, this is what you're going to do at this time. And then I have to tell the people who are going to help me honor that, because when you are a busy thought machine, yes, sometimes it's definitely hard to do that.
Yes. I know when I was on your podcast, one of the things that I really appreciated was that you were so good at that. You were so good at just allowing the space. I've learned as I've been doing podcasts that is really important, because it allows not just your guests to share, but it allows the audience to be engaged with your guest and to actually make space for that guest also. So I think that is fantastic. I'm a big believer in making sure that I put space on my calendar. In the mornings, I get up and I meditate. I write in my journal and I read. I work really hard. Sometimes I fail, but I work really hard to make sure that that's the order that my morning goes in every morning. And what I find is on those days that I'm really good at that, I'm better at allowing for space. I'm better at listening. I'm better at relaxing into the things that I need to do. When I don't do those things in the morning, I find that I'm more anxious. What am I supposed to do? Oh my gosh. Everything is just like, come. And so I definitely appreciate everything that you're talking about in terms of, creating, leaving that space, creating that quiet space. Now, why is silence so important in communication?
Well, sometimes you need time to process. Yes. you just need time to process. And for those people who are not thinkers out loud, they especially need that time to process. So if
Mm-hmm.
you are leading someone on your team or you're having team meetings, and I know that everyone is focused on getting as much content crammed into a meeting as possible because so many things need to be covered. I mean, I do this even with the folks that work with me. It's like, yeah, I may have 15 things that I need to cover, but I know that in this window, I am only going to take the top three. And I teach my clients to do the same thing too. I have a
Mm-hmm.
client who has patients, and sometimes they come in with all of the things that they want to talk about. And what it does is it creates a time management challenge. It creates too much overwhelm and stress. Work's going over. So creating that space within the window that you have and being very clear on the intentions, like, all right, we have 20 minutes, we have 40 minutes, we have 30 minutes during this window. Which of these topics would you like to focus on first? We probably could get through two, we can't get through four. So
Right.
having the clear expectation or intention is important because you're giving people a space to be focused. And when they can focus, you have more clarity. When you have more clarity, you have more understanding. And so the chances of you having your messages become received the way that you want it to be received, it goes up. When you
Mm-hmm.
don't allow that, you just create more opportunity for misinterpretation
Mm-hmm.
and for confusion, which you're going to spend more time anyway trying to explain what you really meant, or, no, that's not what I really said. And you took it that way. I'm sorry that you took it that way. Like, get out of here. I'm sorry you took it that way. No, come on. Let's set ourselves up to win. Let's set ourselves up to have clear, productive conversations.
Yes. So when we're talking about equity and inclusion, that is such a vital part, the communication, because at the beginning you were talking about the biases that we tend to hold and we tend to discard or solidify based on our travels, based on who we meet, based on how we do things. And so in talking about equity and inclusion, having conversations that allow for space is so important because it can be so emotionally charged. And when you have an emotional charge, as well as your brain is going, you got to say something, you got to say, you have to be able to go, okay, let's take a moment here and let's regroup so that we can figure out what it is exactly we're trying to communicate here.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times that doesn't happen because hard information often seems like a personal attack, where it's simply information that is being shared. And so, besides silence or slowing down, do you have any other tips that you can give to people who are listening who maybe are on the verge of or are in the process of having these really tough conversations that also include high emotional charges?
Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you a story. Last December, my family and I went on vacation, and one of the things that we love to do is now go to these escape rooms. I got
Yes.
turned on to these escape rooms a couple years ago. I was on a consulting project, and my son came with me. And after I was done, I picked him up from the hotel, and we went. And he was, doing virtual work at that time, or was he on spring break? I don't remember. But anyway, he came with me and he had a good
Mm,
time. And we went to the escape room and it was great. Now, this last December, when we all went together, so if for those who don't know about the escape room, you go into these, it's like a game, but
mm-hmm,
or a puzzle, I would say.
mm-hmm,
And you choose what type of room you want to go in, and you're locked in there for like an hour, 90 minutes, or however long. And you have clues and you have hints, and you have to figure out one clue to open the next section to get to
mm-hmm,
the next point to solve the puzzle, and you get
Yeah.
to time yourself going through these processes. So anyway, we were in there, and in this case, this particular puzzle had, I think, what is it, 6 people. And so it was my three, and then a family of three, family of two. And so the young gentleman who was on the other side, the family, we all came together and we have to solve the puzzle. So we have to learn how to connect with strangers that we just met to
Mm-hmm.
solve a puzzle. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, that in itself is an experience. Okay. So,
Yes.
but let me tell you what happened. So, with this one particular puzzle, there was some light switches that were, on two sides. My son was on one side, the other son was on the other side, and they needed to communicate about which direction the levers needed to go. So my son would call out and he would say, go back, go back, go back, go back, for each one. So he'll flip, the guy on the other side would flip it. Okay, go left, go back, go up, go back, whatever. And so the guy on the other side got frustrated and he was like, what do you mean back? It's reverse. And so my son quickly reassessed and he was like, no problem, reverse, left, reverse, right, reverse. So what he did was he immediately found another way to connect with the communication. Now,
Mm-hmm.
my son, he's a conflict mediation specialist. I tell you, I don't know where this guy came from. Well, hey, he's 21 and he's top notch, because even when he was in university, the president appointed him to be a mediation specialist
Wow.
for the
Okay.
students while he was there. But I
Mm-hmm.
tell you what, when we are having strategies in communication, the question you asked me was what else around, other than silence, pauses, and things like that. Finding another way to say the same thing.
Yeah.
They were talking about the same thing when they were trying to solve the puzzle, but the son on the other side, his confusion was not using the word reverse.
Mm-hmm.
My son immediately picked up where that confusion was, and all he wanted to do was finish the puzzle and win. So he quickly switched, because he knew exactly all he needed to do was say reverse.
Yep.
It still talked about the same thing, and they got the communication working. So my encouragement, my tip here is find another way to say the same thing. Learn how to, I mean, when we were doing school, we call these similes and metaphors, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is that like? What is it an example of?
Mm-hmm.
So find another way to express it. If you find yourself talking about something and that person on the receiving end is like, I still don't get it, I still don't get it, you can find another way to say it.
Mm-hmm. Or act it out, or just relay it, right?
Mm-hmm,
Just to
mm-hmm.
however you can get it through is it's about getting the message or the information through. It's not so much being connected to the wording or the way that it is being communicated
Mm-hmm.
is what I understand you saying. So
Yep.
I think that that's valid. I think that it's true, simply because I taught conversational English in Korea, and one of my students said, "Could you tell me what "juit" means?" And I said, "Juit." They said, "Yes, I heard it when I was at the airport, and they kept saying "juit, juit." And I said, "That's not a word." And I said, "What was the context? Like, what was happening?" "Well, the mother kept asking the son, "Juit, juit," and the son was like, "No." And they were apparently they were at a restaurant. I didn't have to tell you what that meant because you understood it. and and I then was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, that is not one word. that is that is 3 words."
Yep.
Like, that's 3 words. That's "did you
You
eat?"
eat.
Right? And it's
It's a great example.
"juit." And I said, you're going to run into that a lot when you go. You may be learning English right now, but when you go to an English speaking country, and I don't care if it's America, if it's Canada, if it's the UK, you're going to run into words or phrases or ways of saying things that you're just going to be blown away by, and it's not going to make any sense to you. But it's going to need to be the responsibility of the person who's using the words, right, to tell you or to slow down their words and to give you what it is that they're trying to deliver to you. If they get frustrated, if you said to a foreign speaker, "Did you eat?" and they looked at you like you, like I don't, and you kept saying the same word, you're not communicating. You're not, that's when you stop, you slow down, and you said, "Oh, did you eat?"
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then, oh, okay. Because now what you've also done is you've helped them understand a cultural thing, right? So now the next time, maybe when they hear "you eat," they go, "Nope, I didn't eat."
Oh my God, that is
Right?
such a powerful example, Sedruola. Is so good because context, I think that's what's missing a lot of times. When we hear people share their examples, experiences, or stories, the context is often missing. But the minute you said, okay, it was a restaurant, I was like, oh, you didn't even have to say, I was like, yeah, uh-huh, I
To
know.
save the rest.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I know, and that's it. As soon as he said it to me, I was like, oh, I was like, okay,
Yep.
you know. But it taught me something too at that time. Yeah, I was 21 years old when I was in Korea. But it taught me that, wow, we may think that we're communicating sometimes, and we are so like on two different planes with someone.
Mm-hmm.
Totally possible because they're not understanding the words that are coming out of our mouths.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right?
And you know what? I think too that that's a very important point because people expect that exactly what they say is what's going to be received the way they intended, and it's not the case. There are going to be a lot of mistakes, and we have to create that expectation or create the space and awareness that, look, you're going to make mistakes. You may
Yeah.
say something that's off. You may, before you go ahead and start stoning people, just be patient and realize that you are going to make mistakes as well. And when you do make that mistake, think about how you want that person to give you grace, how you want that person to really try to get to understand, okay, well, what did you mean? What were you
Yes.
thinking? What were you thinking when you said this? What was your thought process here? And I have to use
Yes.
even with my kids.
Yes. So much so. What were you trying to say and what were you thinking? And can you give people grace to kind of try to understand or expand on what is being said? And I think, especially as I relate it to the work that I do, sometimes people, they're afraid of the grace space. They're afraid they're afraid to say the wrong thing, because then if someone says, "Oh, that I don't think you should say it that way," or maybe something else would be better if you said it that way, they immediately go to, "This person thinks I'm a bad person. Oh my gosh," right? Rather than, let's look at what's being said, what we're talking about. No one said anything about anyone being a bad person.
Yes.
We're talking about the words that are coming out and that may not be the right appropriate words. And so, how do we just learn to just adjust and then keep it moving? In doing that, we can create more trust. Oh, this person is amenable and is open to learning, and they can go, this person is open to helping me understand. And now all of a sudden, we have a conversation between people who trust each other. And if something else comes up and it's wrong, they're each willing to help the other understand, whether one person is saying, "Wait a minute, what are you saying?" And the other person's like, "No, no, no, here's what I was trying to say," and vice versa. That is all anyone ever really wants and desires when it comes to communication, right? I
Mm-hmm,
feel
mm-hmm.
we want to understand, but we also want to be understood. We do not want to be gaslighted. We do not want to be shrugged off. We do not want to be dismissed. We want to be understood.
Yes, understood and accepted. We want to belong. Anyone who says otherwise, they're in denial and they're just looking for feel good statements like, just do it, just do it. I say all the time, Nike says just do it, but people don't realize that's an advertising, that's a marketing slogan. It's not an effective way to approach conversations. Just do it. No, just do
Right.
it. You lose the pitch, you lose the investment opportunity, you lose the woman or man of your dreams. Just do it without any preparation and you'll be doing it wrong. So
Yes. So who are the people that you work with the most? I
I
mean,
work
go ahead.
with a lot of women business owners.
Oh,
And some of them, they are hybrid, so they are in corporate and they also have a business on the side. Of
mm-hmm.
course I work with men as well, but I have two facets. The business owners who are working on building their emotional intelligence, using their public speaking story so that they have more confidence in themselves and they have more visibility because they're already very credible. They have credibility. They've been in their space 10 years. They have insights and expertise. What's missing is often needing to be able to communicate under pressure, needing to, feel like they deserve it, not feeling like, okay, I need to do this to prove who I am, or thinking that they don't have a story to tell because everybody's already told their story. So those are areas that I work on with women. They end up having a transformation, long lasting, set in permission control and boundaries with others and with themselves. I think that's the piece that people tend to miss a lot. Then on the corporate side, what we do is we do training workshops, speaking engagements, training workshops, emotional intelligence, delegation, confidence building skills, and things that help the teams to feel more connected and
Mm-hmm.
understand their communication styles.
Right. Individually and collectively.
Yes.
Because teams have a communication style and each individual has a communication style.
Yep. And they need
Talk,
that support.
yes. Talk to us a little bit about emotional intelligence. I feel like that's something that gets thrown out there a lot, and I don't know that everybody really understands what it means. I mean,
Mhm.
I understand what it means, but I would like for you to expound on it as a communicator.
So, what people are using is the framework that's been provided for us with the four quadrants, right? Self awareness, self management, relationship management, and social skills. I explain this as a hodgepodge of different disciplines: psychology, sociology, and sales. Really, those are the three areas that are all mushed together because the self-awareness portion is really tapping into psychology and understanding yourself, becoming a
Mm-hmm.
project of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Self-management is being able to have that control, and that's where you're also exercising psychology with yourself, setting those boundaries and knowing how to make decisions,
Mm-hmm.
because you now have information from self-awareness. And then I say sociology because the relationship management is understanding people, understanding groups, understanding behaviors, knowing how to approach, when to approach, what to say, what not to say, how to nurture relationships. A lot of times the one and dones feel like, okay, I checked the box, but nurturing relationships fall
Mm-hmm.
under that category. And then the social skills, that's where I talk about the sales. It's like sales because you are selling every single day, every time. So thinking about how to get your message out there in the way that serves your audience best. That's where public speaking falls into place.
Mm-hmm.
That's where being able to take all the stuff that you've learned in the other quadrants from your own personal journey and now applying that to the people that are around you. So, emotional intelligence has those four frameworks that people use. But I say that up underneath all of those frameworks, the disciplines of sociology, psychology, and sales are what is feeding each aspect. And so if you think about it that way, everybody has emotional intelligence. We just have the skill set in different areas at different levels. being more aware of it instead of putting a big broad brush and painting it like one big thing, is also more effective.
Yeah. I think about, in listening to what you're saying, I've always thought that my son is incredibly emotionally intelligent young man. He's always been able to kind of, he reads the room really well. He reads the room really well, and he knows who, especially when he's talking about his friends, he knows which of his friends work well together and which of his friends are need to probably not be with this group, but I can hang out with this person on my own because I can manage them, but they don't work well with this person. He's really incredible at it. I don't know where, you know, he got that, but I think that it's really interesting to think about. I was just reading about Audre Lorde, and I just did a podcast episode highlighting her. And one of the things that she said, and she was talking mostly about women because she was quite a womanist and a feminist, and was interested in making sure that the feminist movement would include Black women and women of color and their needs because they're very different. But one of the things that she said was that we are so varied ourselves within that, to think that a movement or something could be the same voice, that it could be just the same needs for everyone, is futile, is ridiculous, because we have those varied personalities, those varied needs, those varied ways of being. And I think that that relates a lot to emotional intelligence, because you have to be able to understand a person as a very varied human, to be able to say, okay, how do I communicate to this person versus how do I communicate with this other person that may have strengths and weaknesses in different areas than this person here. And to think that we're all kind of the same is kind of, it defeats the purpose of, defeats communication altogether.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Really, right? But to use that, the emotional intelligence, to use that emotional intelligence to say, okay, these are my needs, these are some of the things that I understand that I need for myself. What is it that you need for yourself? Okay, great. Now we have all these different people going, these are some of the things we need. Okay, great. What are the things that we need that are common? Because we all have some common needs. They may not all be all the same, but we do have some common needs. Okay, how do we lift our voices for that common need and make sure that it's meant to accommodate more people? So I feel like if more people used that emotional intelligence for that purpose, to figure each person, right? Each quadrant, each person, each layer of people that we are, we would get so much farther in so many things.
You asking for a tall order,
I
Sedruola.
know,
Okay, I don't know where you getting this tall order from, but you asking for a tall order
don't I
because
know it?
it's hard. And
Yeah.
I'm saying this from someone who spent however many years studying the science of communication, teaching, coaching, practicing, being a student, being a coach.
Yeah.
And the average person, if they've gone to college, has taken one or two classes in their humanities for communications. Now
Mm-hmm.
you're asking for an adult who has gone through all of their traumas to be able to siphon, and this is actually what differentiates me from a lot of other people. It's the depth of expertise and skill set. But I'll say, it's hard work. It's hard work even for me, although many things have become much easier because of time and practice and discipline and the hours that I've put into this. That's why I'm able to help people faster in a more strategic way, and create that space that you felt when you were interviewed on my show.
Mm-hmm.
But for the average person, I would say don't try to get too caught up in your head, because you have so many other things going on. You have
Mm-hmm.
so many things in your life, so many experiences that are shaping the way you see the world, those common emotions and feelings that you mentioned, you're spot on. We have to make it general, the feeling of being accepted, of being loved, of being appreciated, of being respected. These are universal principles that it doesn't matter where you are in the world. You don't even have to speak the same language. You will feel the same language. You'll know when you're in a space where someone welcomes you, where you feel accepted. Come on and sit down. You know, and you'll feel it even without words. You'll communicate without words.
Absolutely.
Fastest way I know to get better at assessing others in the workplace or even in your own private life, the fastest way that I know and I recommend is for people to spend more time in that self-awareness quadrant, because the more you uncover the varied layers of your own history, your own life, your own experiences, and you're going to go through some shocking things and some not so shocking. No, I'm not like that. Okay, that's what it says, but that's not me. You're going to go through these reckoning periods. And when you go through these periods, it creates more space for you now as you're interacting with other people to be more kind and to have more respect and be more loving, because you've gone through uncovering some more layers for yourself. So that's the fastest way I would say, like, don't try to, intellectualize your way through this. Okay, this person in this quadrant, this person has this, blah, blah, blah. Nobody has time for that. Focus on yourself, get better aware at yourself. How can I communicate better? How can I say this in a different way? How can I be less reactive and more responsive? How can I demonstrate compassion? How can I be that duck, like the water is on the duck back, water off a duck? How can I be in a space where someone who is in a disoriented state or an angered state or an altered state, who may say something that gets to the core of my being, up under my skin, how can I become so strong in myself that I'm not swayed, my mood is not moved by what someone outside of me says? I can look, okay, that's the way that person is seeing things at this time. So it's important for us to go through that introspective process and to take care of our bodies so that we're having enough sleep, enough water, spending time within ourselves, because when our bodies are exhausted, even if we try, when that person is saying something that's crazy, even if we try, we don't have enough energy to have that resolve within ourselves. And then we, I wish you would. I wish you would. And then it's too late, and then you got to clean it up and try to, And I've been there. Trust me. Trust me.
Yes, absolutely. So part of what I hear you saying is we have to first give ourselves grace, right? We have to first understand for ourselves that when we confront something about ourselves that we in our minds may think make us a bad person, we have to give ourselves enough grace to say, no, it doesn't make me a bad person. This is just something, and it's changeable. I can do something about this. But then we also have to be able to turn to the next person and say the same to them. It doesn't make you a bad person. It just makes that something that you've done or that you do that can be changed, that can be adjusted. But we have to first understand that the grace that we give ourselves, or when we confront ourselves and we know that we are not bad people, we have to bring that same grace to other people and say, doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that that's where they are right now. That's what they're thinking right now. And so it's just, then you have to decide for yourself, okay, is that something that is okay for me to have in my aura? Or maybe, I just let them be over there and we be over here and we'll be good.
You said a lot, because you know what? Tall orders. I tell you, tall orders, because That's the aspect of personal responsibility, having compassion for ourselves. I see in my practice sometimes people are so hard on themselves,
Yeah.
and when I was that way, I was so judgmental. You had a spelling error that was wrong. Oh, she can't spell. Like, because when you
Yeah.
see those critical behaviors, this is how you can tell how a person feels about himself. You just watch the behaviors. You watch
Yes.
the behaviors. So when I felt like that, when I was so hard on myself, not giving myself grace, feel like presenting really nicely on the outside, but on the inside, just like, okay, I have to have it up to this standard. And there's a difference between perfectionism and excellence. And I was
Yes.
perfectionism queen. So when you have that, you are more critical of others. You are not taking as much responsibility for your life. You're blaming your job because they're making me work so hard, like you don't have a choice, and they are doing this, and they don't have good lunch at the office, so I can't even eat properly. Not like you can't make your own food and bring it. I mean, like, no, and I'm not making this up, because these are the legit things that people say, even down to the spirituality. It's not taking a responsibility. You want to give somebody a prayer request to pray for you, pray for me, what you mean I have to pray for myself? Yes. So pray with me versus pray for me. Like,
Right.
even down to the spirituality, when we are talking about self-awareness and
Yes.
emotional intelligence, that's the piece that a lot of people tend to struggle with. So you hitting it on the head, Sedruola.
But I'm
I'm
way like
I'm telling you, like, we here, and then we gotta bring it way down to practical. This is where we at. This is where we at. This is where we at.
oh gosh. I know. That's so funny. Yeah, yeah. It's funny because my cousin, he was sending me a message, and he was like, I always live in the realm of the possibilities of good, like all the. I was like, I know, I feel you, but then it always brings me back down. Like things always bring. It's like in the Godfather. I try to get out, but they always bring me. Always pull me back. And so you think to yourself, it's like, but it's good. It's good to kind of have these lofty ideas, I think, because otherwise you get pulled and you get pulled, and you're gonna always get pulled, just to make sure that you have the ability to go back, so that you can get pulled and then you can go back, you can get pulled and you can go back, and then you can continue the conversation, you can
Got it.
continue the interaction, you can continue the work that you do, and not feel like, you know
Hallelujah. Amen. I need to pass the offering plate on that one.
oh my goodness, absolutely. Well, so I'm gonna ask, how did you get here? How did you get to do Wing what you're doing now?
Well, okay, which part do I want to share here? Because there's so many pieces. I got here from trial and error. I got here from wanting to fit in and belong in my immediate family with my
Mm,
stepfather, my mom, and my brothers. I wanted
mm,
to fit in with my biological dad and his family, who I met at the age of 8. I got here from my own personal experiences,
oh
and
yeah.
when I left the beautiful islands of the Bahamas, I was the Miss Confident person. I would win the confidence contest any day. But life happened. I was 17 when I left, and I'm going to tell you the things that I was able to accomplish during that time. And then even getting pregnant and continuing on for my double degrees and things like that. I will tell you, throughout life, having a certain mindset and awareness helped me, because I wasn't exposed to so many limiting thoughts. I
Mm,
thank my mom for this, because she was super strict, and I could only watch TV 1 hour a week. And so I wasn't really exposed. I couldn't do all the things my cousins could do. I wasn't exposed to all of those external influences. And so she's a
mm,
teacher. She taught me how to love learning,
mm,
and I had that love for learning, and it helped me to grow. But where I am today is, just watching people in corporate organizations that I was supporting, looking at, oh, okay, This is what made this person stand out as a leader. This is what where this person is struggling. You know, my personality hasn't changed much since I was in high school. I'm still very bubbly and open, and very supportive of people. So in those work environments, people would often come and share their woes and their troubles with me. At one point, I had I had a chair
Mhm.
in my cube, and people would literally come in and sit, and I had to take it out so I could get work done. You know, and so yeah, it's been a journey, but where I am today, and it's really why I'm so passionate. My mission is to help other women who are going through life not really aware of how their actions and their behaviors have been informed by their past, and how
Mhm.
to really kind of take control of that so that they can have the life that they deserve and the life that they desire. I want women to use entrepreneurship as a way to profit from their own wisdom, because when you're able to do that, they are able to make choices and decisions that are much more holistic for them, instead of settling or out of convenience or out of necessity. So
Yeah.
that's pretty much how I got here, through my
It's
journey, my
awesome.
experiences, my 12 years of study. Yeah, that's how I got here.
I love it. I think, I think sometimes the best paths are those that are varied, but those that when you get to where your passion is, where your passion lies, or where you really shine, it's it's informed by all of the things that you thought were so hard and so terrible in your past, and you go, wait a minute, this is what I learned, and this is what I learned, and this is what I learned, and it's informing what I'm doing now. So, oh my goodness, imagine that.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my God, yes. And even the things that, you don't want to talk about from the past, once you've gone through it and healed through it, like I wrote in my book, those
Hmm.
experiences, those stories. And I'd have people read the book and they'd be like, "What? She's writing about these things?" Like, yeah, because it doesn't bother me.
Yes,
I'm okay with it, and you can learn from my story. So,
yes. And I think that that's what our stories are for. They're to be shared so other people can learn,
mhm,
because then they can, my mom used to say, you don't have to make the same mistakes as other people. You can learn from other people's mistakes. You can
mhm.
make your own mistakes.
Yeah, and I sure
Which
do
is
make them too. I make them too, Sedruola.
That's right. That's
Hmm.
right. So you make your own mistakes, but you also learn from other people's mistakes. But if people are hiding, or they don't want to talk about it, or they're pushing it down, then how does anyone get to learn from those stories, from those
Hmm.
experiences? And your what you've learned from those experiences is also to help teach other people what they can, what the possibilities are within those situations. So
Exactly.
it's we're all connected. It's a cycle. It's a thing.
It really is. It really is. I'm looking forward to what I'm going to be teaching in the next 5 years about, the mistakes that we're making today,
That
right?
we're making.
Like, okay, Lord, let's hurry up and get over these mistakes, like, so I can teach the
That's
lesson,
right.
like, because when you in it, it don't
And right.
feel good.
Exactly. But then when you're out of it, you're like, oh,
Yep,
okay,
made me
okay.
stronger. Hmm.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us where we can find you, and tell us the name of your book, so that I will have it linked in the show notes. But tell us where we can find you, how we can work with you, and where we can find your book. What the name of your
Yes.
book is.
MoniqueRussell.com. You can get me on my website, MoniqueRussell.com.
Okay.
Also, LinkedIn. So, LinkedIn, Monique Russell, Clear Communication Coach, or you just Google it, it should come up. The book is Intentional Motherhood: Who Said It Would Be Easy? You can get it on my website, you can get it on
Nice.
Amazon, and you can work with me in a number of ways: group coaching, private coaching, keynote speeches, and workshops.
I love it. Thank you so much for being
It's my
here with
pleasure.
me,
It's
Monique.
my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this
Absolutely.
conversation.
Yes, it was a lot of fun, but I think we had fun on your podcast too, so I didn't expect anything less, you
Of
know?
course. Of course. Of course. I love shows like
Oh.
this because it's not scripted. We just go with the flow and yeah, we get to the
And we
core.
learn. And
Hmm.
hopefully, those who are listening are learning something too. But before I let you go, I must ask you, what is your favorite dish?
Conch salad, conch salad, conch salad. Yes,
Oh,
it's a native dish
yes.
in the Bahamas. It's one
Bahamas,
that I
yes.
have to have. Yeah. In fact, I want some right now.
We went to the Bahamas. We had a Bahamas girls trip when I turned 30. It was so
Mm.
much fun. And we did have conch salad. Then they had that at the resort that we stayed in. I was like, this is amazing. This is awesome.
Well, either you like it or you don't. So if you like
That's
it,
true. That's true.
good.
That's really good. Oh, thank you again for being here. I so appreciate the time that you took to be with me today.
Same. Thank you for having me and for your insightful questions.
Hey, did you enjoy that episode? If so, please leave a review. It would mean the world, but only if it's a good one and you really did enjoy it. In which case, it would be awesome if you help support my work over at patreon.com/Sedruola Maruska. And finally, before you go, don't forget diversitydish.com. I'd love to work with you. See you soon.